Hi, Tracy.
Hello
It's great to meet you.
there. Great to meet you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. This is such an important topic. And as somebody who's been completely phased about where to start contributing to open source, I'm really excited about this talk. I can actually tell you that somebody reached out to Matteo. Yeah, somebody reached out to Matteo recently with exactly this question. So I'm so pleased that you're going to be talking about it. I'm going to hand over to you now. And this is Tracy Lee with How to Get Involved in Node.js Open Source and Community.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you again for having me. So excited to give this talk today. It's definitely something I get asked a lot. So I have some amazing slides to share. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So again, this is a question that happens a lot, right? It's, for those of you who, see all these amazing people out on the internet doing these amazing things, it's how do I contribute to open source? How can I actually get involved in Node? And I think one of the great things about Node is that it's actually one of the easiest communities involved in because there's so many ways to do so, both technical and non-technical. And the great part, again, is that you don't actually have to make significant technical contributions to make some significantly impactful contributions to the open source community in Node. So this is what today's talk is going to be about. My name is Tracy. You can follow me on Twitter at LadyLeet. I'm always happy to chat with you. So let me know. I'm the CEO of a company called This.Labs. We're a 50% consultancy. I love what we do, love the JavaScript community. I previously was community relations through the OpenJS Foundation for Node. So definitely spent a lot of time in the Node community, and everyone there is just absolutely amazing. I'm also on the RxJS core team, a Google developer expert, a Microsoft MVP. And again, I just love community. So definitely come hang out with me on Twitter. I'm always happy to chat. Back to my day job. This is one of the things that I love to do the most, but we get to work with such really, really cool clients. So if you're interested in JavaScript and interested in doing really cool things, this is how I make new friends. Just email me, Tracy at this dot. And if you're looking for a new job, whether it be engineering manager or software engineer, come hang out. I'd love to hear from you. All right. So again, biggest question, how do I contribute to Node? Well, today I'm going to walk you through a few things. First, we're just going to walk through the Node ecosystem so you can figure out how on earth you can get involved. You can be a corporation, you can be a business looking to grow your footprint within the ecosystem. You can be an individual looking to contribute, right? We'll walk through all of that. I'll navigate, Node.js a little bit for you. Then we'll talk about just what it looks like to contribute technically, if that's what you're looking to do. We'll also look at non-technical contributions and what you can do there as well. And then we'll talk about some do's and don'ts in terms of, considerations you should take before you jump in. So let's go ahead and start off by just talking about the Node ecosystem. Again, it's really large and expansive. And as I said before, there's so many ways you can actually get involved. So first off, this is kind of like a high-level map to Node and kind of what the Node ecosystem looks like, right? So it's primarily broken down into two groups. You have the technical steering committee, the TSC, and the community committee, the ComCom, which is under the TSC. But each one of these groups is so big and so vast. So TSC is kind of what guides and helps make changes to Node core. And then you have ComCom, which kind of drives a lot of the different community initiatives that help with Node adoption, education, and so much more, right? And lastly, for businesses and corporations, there's always the OpenJS Foundation, which is a really great way to get involved as well. So I think once you understand kind of these areas, you can figure out, okay, well, this is the right place for me. And then obviously start contributing. So let me go ahead and walk through some of these high level things really quickly. I love James. Thank you so much for the Node contributors who helped me kind of put things together, including Matteo, which I'll talk about in a second. But James is on the TSC, and I asked him, hey, what's the TSC? And he said, Technical Steering Committee committee is the group which establishes the contribution policy and serves as a backstop for disagreements. For instance, if a PR can't reach a consensus on whether or not to land, it's up to the TSC to decide. So James is an awesome resource within the Node community if you haven't met him before. If you look at GitHub, and I have the link down there to the exact place where you can find all this stuff, but it's just a subset of collaborators who contribute to Node, right? They have final authority over the project, and whether that be setting release dates, releasing quality standards, technical direction, project governance and process, conduct guidelines, development process, right? Coding standards, mediating technical conflicts, all that stuff the TSC is responsible for. It's a lot to take in. Okay, so then you have the second leg, if you will, and this is the Node Community Committee. So there's a ton of initiatives run by ComCom, and the intent of this is really to improve the cultural development and outreach within the Node project. So again, this is the best place if you don't feel like, hey, I can make really impactful, contributions with my code. There's so many amazing people. And again, you can be any level to really help from a non-coding skill set perspective. So current initiatives in ComCom are internationalization, mentorship, examples, outreach, and website redesign. I've seen so many people even contribute from a project management perspective, from a design perspective, right? From an outreach perspective. These are all so valuable and so helpful to building the Node community. So I'm going to walk through TSC and ComCom in a lot of detail in the next few sections, but I just wanted to talk about kind of the third leg, which is the OpenJS Foundation. So if you're an organization, the foundation is actually a really great way to get involved in the Node project. It's another way that you can actually get involved if you're an organization is to just dedicate resources to the TSC. That's also really amazing. And that's what a lot of companies we see do, right? So here you see a bunch of options to consider if you're looking to join the OpenJS Foundation and what it gives you. There's a lot of OpenJS members like Google, IBM, Joyent, Microsoft, GoDaddy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's tons of ways, again, to get involved. And there's also ways for nonprofits or educational institutions to get involved as well for free. So wherever you are and however you want to contribute, there's definitely a way for you to do so. So now that you have a little bit of an idea of how to navigate the Node project, the last thing to do is obviously start contributing. So let's go to that next. The first thing I want to talk about in this section is just technical contributions, right? And how do you make contributions? But before I do that, I wanted to share a story of Bethany, and Bethany is on the technical steering committee and her journey. So I love this because, she said, hey, my first experience with Node was in 2015. She chose it to complete her university project. Then she was placed in the IBM SDK for Node for a Node.js product team when she rejoined in 2016. Sorry, that was a little bit jumbled. But anyways, university to IBM to being on a Node team. Amazing, right? And then, her team started contributing a lot of things upstream, right, to help the community, which is a great way, again, to contribute. And then once all the changes were upstreamed, she's like, oh man, I have some time. So let me help now with generally the Node project, right? And then Miles, who is an amazing person within the community as well, offered to mentor her to become a releaser. Spent over 6 months with her pairing on the release process because she was so amazing, because Miles is so amazing. And then since then, she's been active in the release working group and helping get Node releases out, which is amazing. And now she mentors and onboards other people to become releasers. So again, it's so beautiful to see how you start getting involved, people help, and then you decide you want to help because other people have been so helpful for you. I just love that story. So the Node Technical Steering Committee is kind of where all the technical stuff happens, right? That's governed within the Node project. So you have the main Node GitHub repo, and it is such a wealth of information. It has so many links, and it truly is kind of like a gateway to all things Node. but it can be a little bit hard to navigate. So again, here you can just find like tons of information. I'm going to give you some highlights though. So if you're new to the project, definitely learning about the governance model is important. This is going to walk you through so many things, whether it be issue triage, how it's handled, collaborator guidelines, policies, how to become a collaborator, how they're nominated, when the TSC meets. I think the thing I also love about how the Node project runs is the transparency, right? So all the TSC meetings are actually public. You can read through all the meeting notes, you can watch all the videos, and you can see all the conversations happening. So again, even if you're not directly involved or you miss something, you can still be involved. And I think watching this is like a really great way to get to know everybody involved, right? How does the team handle issues at hand? How do they handle the PRs? You learn about the current priorities based on what they're talking about. And through that, you can see, hey, wow, this is where I can get involved. This is amazing, right? And you can also see, again, how you can deliver value. So I think another really special part about how, again, transparent and awesome Node is you can actually find a list of current TSC members and collaborators on the GitHub repo. And again, this is really helpful to understand who's involved and, who you might need to reach out to for whatever reason. So you might think that Node Core is a big project, right? But there's actually a lot of adjacent projects. There's like adjacent projects, strategic initiatives, working groups you can get involved in. So literally whatever your expertise might be, there is definitely a way you can help contribute. And there's probably something you could start doing today. So starting off with adjacent projects, a lot of them are actually delegated to different working groups, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But you can see just this vast ecosystem that Node has created and how much there actually is to do. I asked Michael Dawson, because there's so many projects, which ones are actually to Node, right? So he said, hey, check out the Node API, tooling, loaders team, package maintenance, and next 10. Those are kind of things that you might want to look at if you're going and poking around there. Working groups are a great way to get involved too. These meetings are also recorded. They're posted on YouTube, and the meeting notes are also very well documented. So that's amazing. And if you look at some of the working groups, you have streams, build, diagnostics, internationalization, Docker, add-on API, release, ecosystem security, package maintenance, and Undici. So like there's just so much, right? Strategic initiatives. So Matteo of the TSC recommends that you actually take a look at the strategic initiatives as a way to get involved. Because when you look at those current initiatives and look at the completed initiatives on GitHub, again, you get an idea of what's valuable or what's coming right now, right? So current projects are Core Promise APIs, future of the build toolchain, startup performance V8, and again, so many more. So lastly, on this GitHub repo, I think what's really important is to read the contributing guidelines. It's very important to understand what you should and should not do before you start contributing, because it tells you, again, how do you deal with bugs? How do you deal with issues? How do you ask for help? How do you deal with pull requests? I mean, it really is a wealth of information. And again, I love Michael Dawson. I love how amazing he is as a human being and how awesome he is to be in the Node community. He gave me a few tips on how people can get involved. So he said, hey, first off, you can check out nodetodo.org and maybe like get a small scope task to complete as a first step. Also helping basically triage and investigate issues is really helpful. Triage is a really, really great way to like get involved immediately. And he has a link to a really helpful blog post there as well. Helping out with test issues, right? There's always flaky tests and they're always looking to improve them and improve code coverage. This is a really great way to start as well. Or get involved with one of the teams and working groups, right? Again, it's not just Node Core that needs help. It's like these millions of other things too. There's regular meetings on the Node calendar and it's open to anybody. So you can just check that out. And again, it's a really great way to figure out how or what you might be interested in. Michael also recommends just following the next 10 effort or just jumping in, right? Because you can, again, identify some strategic areas that you might want to help with moving forward. Matteo, he said, start contributing to Node Core, be consistent in contributing, and be reliable. You know, of course, right? And also to own a subsystem, which is a strategic initiative. And Matteo, you know, I love your advice because you make it seem so easy, but we all know it's not that easy, Matteo. But I mean, his point of being consistent and contributing and being reliable within the community is really important, right? Because people aren't going to say, hey, oh, we should collaborate with you, or hey, you're a good option to work with if you're not going to be consistent, right? So if anything, all you have to do, it's so easy, is just show up, do good work, keep your word when you say you're going to do something, deliver, and people will start trusting you more, and slowly you'll be able to do more. So literally just show up, right? I promise you, you don't realize how far that actually goes. Joy Yi is another great example of how, you know, somebody who was just consistent and reliable is now just such an important part of the Node community. So her story also starts off in college. She worked as an intern. Then all of a sudden she gave this talk at Node.js Live, and Tracy Hines and Michael Rogers were there. They were working at Node Foundation at the time. They invited her to Node Interactive. She accepted. At Node Interactive, there's this awesome thing called a Code and Learn. And, you know, all the TSC members come together and help you submit your first pull request into Node. And she submitted her first pull request, and that's all she needed. All of a sudden, she started contributing to Node Core, and then she was nominated to be a collaborator, and then a CTC member, and like the rest is history, right? And what she says, which I think is really special, is that, again, it's the community, it's the events that helped a lot and made it so much easier and so much less intimidating for her to just get involved. So, you know, that's the first step. All you have to do is put your foot forward, and then great things will happen. So now that we've talked about some technical contributions, again, I know that was a lot to digest, but like, again, there's just so much you can do. I wanted to share some easy ways for you to get involved without having to be technical at all. So we can go back to the community committee and, again, some of these initiatives. So internationalization, mentorship, examples, outreach, and website design. I mean, again, there's so many different ways to provide input within the Node community. Other ways to get involved that, you know, are, I don't know, I feel like very apparent, right? Is doing things like fixing GitHub documentation, writing blog posts, right? Talking to people. Like, you know, Michael's super busy. And, you know, as I was putting together this talk, I was going through the GitHub repo, and I was like, oh man, where's this, where's that? And, you know, he's so amazing because he's always willing to listen for feedback, always looking for suggestions. And I really do find that the Node community is very like open in that sense, right? But man, I think beginners especially do not understand the value that they have in just being beginners and looking at something with a fresh set of eyes. You know, because I can go to the Node GitHub repo and I can say, well, I know this information is supposed to be there and it's not. So where is it? You know, and I can kind of go digging around for it, right? Or people who, you know, like Michael can be like, well, yeah, of course, this information is right here, duh, right? But as a beginner, you know, that's not a great experience, right? So one of the amazing things you can do is just go through the GitHub documentation and just figure out, how can I make this experience easier for others? What do I wish was there? What do I think can be changed, right? Are there pieces of information in different areas that need to be reconciled? For some reason, this says this and this says that. Well, which one is the source of truth, right? So it's really great to also ask questions and bounce ideas off of people before submitting a PR. But again, especially as a beginner, as you get involved in this, I mean, it's just amazing the information you can give and the value that you can provide. The other thing you want to do is start educating about your experience. If you're really passionate about technology or library, start writing blog posts about your experience. Tell us what you love. Tell us your experience. Tell us about certain features, upcoming features. Even if you just look at Next 10, you can say like, hey, here's what's been going on this week. How cool is that, right? You don't have to contribute directly to a project repo with code to be useful and relevant within a community. Like education and sharing and building that ecosystem of knowledge is really, really powerful and really useful. So I love Benjamin as well. He's also a TC member, and he was talking about how he got involved. And again, I just love this because it shows you the history of these people that like we look up to within the community right now. So he said he opened a few issues back in when Node was like 0.x and it wasn't very successful. Then he got involved in like some other libraries. He was trying to get promises to work in Node. He mostly failed. And then Iowa.js happened. And then all of a sudden people were helpful. And then he gained confidence. And then he was a collaborator. And then through all that, he realized, hey, I need to work on my communication skills. And he volunteered for less technical parts like moderation. And this was so beneficial for him because he felt like he had a lot of self-work to do on communicating better. And I think that's so insightful if you can, realize that as a human being. And he says every year he kind of has a theme to his involvement in Node. So this year it was mostly abort signal and event target and adding support to Node APIs. But, every year he stops and thinks about it and says, hey, what do I think can help users and where am I in my journey? So I love that. And I think that's just like so beautiful. Lastly, what I want to talk about is just some do's and don'ts. And this applies to basically any open source project that you get involved in. Let's go ahead and start off with the do's. I think the first thing is to have compassion. So remember that maintainers usually work for free on nights and weekends, right? So be nice to them and treat maintainers like people. Maintainers are just as human as you are. And sometimes they can only handle so many things at once, right? So if you treat them like crap, they're not going to care about you. And I think that also goes with being professional, which is the next point. It is very true that when you do open source, you may or may not get paid for it. Usually you're not, right? It's not a job that you're going to work for. But everybody expects you to be professional and have professional etiquette in those situations. So make sure you're treating those relationships with professionalism because nobody likes to deal with people who don't respect each other. Also, make sure you assume the best of intentions, right? We can all go look at other people's code and other people's blog posts and this and that and whatever. And you can point out so many things that you think are wrong within literally anything, right? Because, nothing's perfect, right? But definitely go in and assume the best of intentions, right? Technical decisions sometimes are made for certain reasons, right? But if you go in and you insult the code, like nobody's going to pay attention to you. And, honestly, open source is really sometimes and often a very tireless and thankless job to keep everyone happy. Another thing is code of conduct. Again, Node has a very good code of conduct, but even if you're working on a project that doesn't, make sure you treat people as you would like to be treated, right? Make sure you're abiding by that code of conduct and, just be nice to people. Now for the don'ts. So do not act or be entitled. This comes with the idea of just being patient, right? I don't think you are the biggest priority for a maintainer. Think about it. People have full-time jobs. Then they have a full-time job in open source. That's already 80 hours. And then they have probably kids or families or a social life or something. And then they're dealing with everything else. So imagine having to juggle a million things like that, right? Also, just don't be annoying. Just really don't be annoying. Don't email somebody 10 times a day about an issue. Definitely follow up, but follow up within reason. And then the other thing is to not complain, right? Everybody's trying their best and you might not understand why a technical decision was made, but it's probably because you weren't there. So I hope you all learned something today and are inspired to start contributing to Node and, checking things out. Again, all the information is out there for you. It's not magic. All it takes is for you to take one step forward. You can always find me on Twitter at LadyLee if you'd like to chat more. And of course, you can always email me, Tracy at Viston, and I'm always happy to chat. Thanks for having me.
Tracy, thank you ever so much. That was a great talk, and what a great talk to end NodeConf Remote with. You've certainly been our headline act. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to wave you off now. So thank you.